How are you doing? Great. I have to welcome you to one of the most influential subjects known to mankind. A subject which is so powerful that it borders on magic. In 2009, a man, a journalist by the name Rob Walker, was intrigued by the idea how you, how I, how all of us can spend phenomenal amounts of money as long as a story is attached to an object. Michael Jackson's jacket from Thriller, the red one, you know, was sold for $13 million, whilst the same jacket in a thrift shop would be sold for $200. Why? Just because of a story is that one worth more. So intrigued by this, he wanted to conduct a study. And what he did was that he launched something called the Significant Object Study. And it worked like this. He walked over to his computer, he logged in on eBay, he purchased 200 objects. The average value of each object was $1. He then took these 200 objects and he called an author and he said, "Hey, I was wondering if you'd like to be part of a study. I'd like you to write a particular story to one of the objects." And the objects that he chose, or the first one, was the beautiful horse's head. Isn't it exotic? So he asked the author to write a story about it, and this particular horse's head got a story about a woman whose father lived in Paris during the 50s, studied, and this horse has actually been forgotten in the Louvre, dropped down the Eiffel Tower, and been in a drunken cell overnight. He then called 199 more authors so that he had 200 stories to 200 objects. And the day came when he was going to launch them on eBay again. And I assume that it was with nail-biting anticipation that he walked over to eBay, logged in, posted the objects, and the question was, would there be a difference? Do you think there was a difference? So he published this object, which cost 99 cents, and he then got $62.95 for it. For you who are skilled at maths, you can understand that that is a slight increase of 6,258%. How can that not be magic? But then you might ask yourself, oh my God, maybe it was just the horse's head. Maybe it was like a popular object. What happened to the other 199? Well, the following. He purchased them for $129, all the 200 objects together. And when he sold them for a phenomenal amount of $8,000. This study has been replicated over and over and over again, and the only difference is that the object has a story attached to it, and you are inclined to pay more for it. I find this mind-boggling, but you know what I find even more mind-boggling? This. You and I, we go to the movies, and we watch Mr. Bond. And we sit there, and it's absolutely unrealistic, but we still love it. And some of it, we love it so much that we walk out the cinema and we go like, "Ooh, I want to be like Bond. I'd like to walk like Bond. I'd like to take a shaken but not stirred." And some of us take it one step further and we ask ourselves, how can I be more like Bond? And well, the next day when we're walking to our work, we just happen to walk by a watch shop. And in the watch shop, you find an Omega watch. And you look at the watch and you go, "Whoo, wasn't that the one that Mr. Bond wore?" And then you pay 7,000 euros to buy the object which has a story attached to it so that you can attach yourself to the story. 11.5 billion is plowed into storytelling in product placement every single year because you buy it. Why do you buy it? Well, in order to understand that, we have to have a better understanding of how our brains work. So let's just put it basically like this. You have three areas: instinct, emotion, and logic. Instinct, emotion, and logic. Now, what's interesting with this is that instinct and emotion has an immense impact over logic. And the trick when it comes to storytelling is this. Remember this sentence. If this is the only thing you remember of this seminar, it's the most important one. The more emotionally invested you are, the less critical you are. The more emotionally invested, the less critical you are. So at the front of the cortex, you have a little area called the orbifrontal cortex, and it looks like this. It's your skeptical part of your brain, and it asks itself why and how do things work. But with storytelling, when you become emotionally invested, your orbifrontal cortex goes on a holiday. And I'd like to share with you the greatest emotional investment of all, which is falling in love. Do you remember the last time you fell in love? Can't hear you. If not, it's sad. For you who can't remember, let me picture it for you. So you're at home, you receive a text message from the loved one, and you go, oh, and your heart jumps. You see her coming around the corner, and your heart stops. And you long, and you yearn, and you wait. You can't think of anything else. When you look at her, and she's chewing an apple, you go like, ooh, I love the way you chew that apple. Ooh, you're so crunchy. Makes me warm. 13 months later, your orbifrontal cortex comes back from the vacation, because that is the average time that we are in love. So the orbifrontal cortex comes back from the vacation. It goes like, whoo, what's this thing that's grown around my belly? Where are my friends? Where are my hobbies? And suddenly you hear this sound in your apartment. You go like, what is that sound? And you come into the kitchen and you see this person having at an apple going like, and you're like, my God, can you keep it quiet? You're destroying the table. Because of your emotional investment, you are less critical. What is similar with a story? Well, every single story is like a small romance. The better the story, the better the romance. And that is why it's painful when TV series end, for instance. This all comes down to something peculiar called hormones. And I'd like to share a couple of them with you. And I'd like to start with dopamine. So dopamine is the hormone that makes you motivated, charged. You want to go at it. You feel anticipation. Look at the effects of dopamine. When you have dopamine in your brain, you're more focused, motivated, creative, and you remember things better. Would you say that this is important to create in the person that you're talking to? Yes or no? I'd like to increase your dopamine levels by about 50 to 70%. Is that okay? Are you sure? This will be good to begin with. It'll become greater, then it'll become painful, and then it'll become okay again. Is that okay as well? All right? Goes like this. 7 years ago, I got a phone call from a woman, and she said, hey, I'm in charge of one of the biggest training companies in Europe. We've got loads of teachers on presentation skills, public speaking. We'd like to lift them to a new level, and we think you're the guy. Can you come to a meeting? And I was like mega super proud. So I take the train up to Stockholm. I'm heading to their office, and just as I am going into their office, what I don't know is that I'm walking into one of the absolute worst meetings I'm going to have in my entire life. But I don't know that yet, so it's okay, isn't it? So I open the door, and I'm met by a woman. Her name is Lena. And the first thing she says is, are you ready? I'm like, I'm ready for what? And then she says, just so you know, I'm not the one you're going to have the meeting with. There's 3 other gentlemen, which is weird. And then we start chatting for a minute. And after a minute, I can see her go like, look at her watch. And then she asks me again, are you ready? I'm like, yeah. What shall I be ready for? You're making me nervous. And then she says, do you see the room over there? And I say, yeah, I see the room over there. Okay, in that room, there are 3 gentlemen waiting for you. They're all majority owners of this company. And it's probably good for you to know as well that they're all ex-military guys. I'm like, why? And then she says the killer thing. She says, and none of them wants the training that you are going to present. I'm like, you got to be messing with me. This is not true. Why? And then she says, well, everybody wants it, but the management are on 2 higher horses, so they don't understand it. So I'm walking down the aisle, I get halfway, and then I can hear her wheezing, going like, David, David, David. And it's like she's going to say something cool to me. And I still don't know to this day if this woman is sadomasochistic or just downright unintelligent. Because then she says this. Would you find it annoying if I don't tell you what she was going to say? Well, you gave me your allowance, so I would say that what you felt was good, good, great, and now it's pain, correct? But the good thing of this is that what I wanted to prove to you is that I just increased your focus, motivation, creativity, and you will remember this passage better than the previous one, because I increased your dopamine levels. So build cliffhangers, build suspense, and just use storytelling, and you create that beautiful hormone. Will you allow me to create another one? You're not sure now, are you? All right, I'm going to create oxytocin in you. Now, the beautiful thing with oxytocin is that it increases generosity, trust, and bonding. Would these be important things to have in life? Yes or no? Yes! I like that, thank you. All right, here we go. I want you to picture a playground in front of you. A man with his child, 4 years of age, swinging him back and forth. The child is screaming of happiness. After a while, the child starts to run around. The man sits down. He's the father. The boy comes up and puts his head on the lap of the father, says, I can't play anymore, Dad, I'm tired. The boy sees a bicycle, kid, a red bicycle, and he says, I'd like to learn how to ride a bike, Dad. Well, after Mum passed away, I'm sorry, it's very difficult for us financially. But that wasn't what worried the father. What was worrying for the father was that the boy had become more and more tired. So he called the hospital. They did some blood tests. Very, very critically and very quickly, they were sent all around the hospital. When they went to do the CAT scan, they left. And the doctor said, good luck. And that is probably the last thing you want to hear when you leave a CAT scan. After a while, the doctor calls the father up and says, I think you need to come in. And so they do. He hasn't got a babysitter for his son Adam, so he brings him along. The doctor says to Adam when he comes in, hey Adam, can you go out and play with the train? Because I need to talk to your father. So Adam runs out and plays. The father sits down and the doctor says, I've got bad news. Your son is dying, and he has 6 months left to live. Now, receiving such a message to yourself is okay, but giving it to your 4-year-old son is hell on earth. I had to do this. But I was lucky, I guess, because thanks to some of you who have contributed to research in cancer, Adam got an experimental treatment, and he learned to ride the bike, not that spring, but next spring. When I tell a story with empathy, you get oxytocin in your veins. And when similar stories are told, they increase these 3 objects. And listen to this number. When you have oxytocin in your bloodstream, you become between 80 to 250% more generous. Can you grasp that number? 80 to 250% more generous. Now the bad thing with, or rather I'll put it like this, the way to create oxytocin is through empathy and setbacks in your stories. So when you build a story, just see it that you have empathy and setbacks for the character. And you know, you are so easily fooled that even this will work.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, and the new one is much better.
Just to give you a concept of how powerful oxytocin is, some of you have probably seen Breaking Bad in here, correct? Some of you have seen Dexter, correct? I want you to understand that you've been sitting on the other side of the screen rooting for a drug dealer, going like, yeah, come on, kill the cops, yeah, deal to the kids, yeah, build a drug kingdom. Millions of people all over the world. Why? Because the author simply put oxytocin into you and associate it to the character, and they can buy anything. The power of oxytocin is incredible. The final one, the third one, there's actually 9, but I don't have time to go through all of them. You can go into my site, davidjpphillips.com, to find out more. But the final one is endorphins. Now, endorphins makes you more positive, open, and less critical. Would they be nice to give to your audience, to the people that you talk to? Probably. Let's have a look what it looks like when you overdose on endorphins.
And to share.
And to share.
All that is to come.
All that is to come.
To give and to receive.
To give and to receive.
To speak and to listen.
To speak and to listen.
To inspire and to respond. Are you speaking or listening?
To speak and to listen.
To inspire and to respond.
To inspire and to respond.
And in all circumstances.
And in all circumstances.
Of our life together.
I'm sorry, of our life together. Of our life together.
Loyal to you.
To be loyal to you.
With my whole life.
With my whole life.
And with all my being.
And with all my being.
Until death parts us.
Until death parts us.
Okay. So you can create endorphins by simply producing laughter in the person that you're talking to. And I just want to point this less critical part out. I want you to imagine that you're at home, you got your 5 friends, and you're pulling jokes, and you're laughing, so you're cramping in your stomach. Do you know the situation? Would you say that the quality of your jokes at that point of time are going up, or are they going down? Down. You become less critical the more endorphin you have in your bloodstream. I want to end this off with cortisol. Now this is your opposite hormone. The strong hormones that create a contrast. So what does cortisol feel like? Rah! That's what cortisol feels like. I just didn't have time to deliver a story on it. But if I wanted to, I could have delivered a scary story. Now, I could have spent 1 hour injecting 9 different hormones in you, and your brain would be entirely messed up. I think this is just about enough. I want to make it clear to you that if you create cortisol in the people that you talk to, you stress them, you use too much PowerPoint, you are confusing, these are the effects of cortisol. Would you say that they are nice? But if you create oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, these are the effects. Are they better? So I recommend you to use the most powerful tool known to mankind, a tool which has such a precision that you can inject an exact hormone to the exact person that you desire to get the exact psychological effect that you need. And to end this off, I want to make something super clear to you. Super clear. I'm most known for my seminar, How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint, which has millions of views on YouTube. So look at that as well, but I want to end it off like this. For 250,000 years, we've been using verbal communication to transfer knowledge from generation to generation. For 27,000 years, we've been using writing on walls to transfer knowledge from generation to generation. For 3,500 years, we've been using text to transfer knowledge from generation to generation. For 28 years, we've been using PowerPoint. Which one do you think your brains, my brains, and everybody's brains are adopted to? Just to give you an idea, this is how long we've been using storytelling. This is how long we've been using PowerPoint. It doesn't even go over the line. Please use storytelling. Thank you very much.
We are the heroes of our